This is Abhishek Sengupta. Today, we are taking up a topic called investments. Now, in order to explore this subject, we have with us Mr. Kausik Mitra, the founder of In IDeas Finserve. This is Abhishek Sengupta. Now, today we are taking up a topic called investments. Now, investment is a very common term nowadays, but most of us do not get deep into this subject. Now, in order to explore this subject, we have with us Mr. Kausik Mitra, the founder of In IDeas Finserve. Mr. Mitra, welcome to our show. So, we want to know what is equity investment and what are the risks involved, and do you think one should get into equity in spite of the risks involved? Over to you.
Yeah. Basically, if you are investing in an equity, it means that you are buying up ownership of the company, which is a partial ownership of the company. See, like there are two ways in which a company raises capital from the market. One way that they issue a debenture, which is a bond, which an investor can buy, and it's like an FD product, which will carry a coupon, a fixed rate of interest, and you know that your capital is there. Maybe you will get a return of the capital in 3 years, 5 years going ahead. Other way in which a company may get capital from the market is by issuing shares. So people, layman investors may buy those shares and get a proportionate ownership of the company. So when you are buying a proportionate ownership of the company, one has to remember that your fortunes are getting tied up with the fortunes of the company. So if the company is doing well going ahead, okay, if its order books are good, it's generating orders, its balance sheet is good, and also when the company does well, these stock prices go up. When the stock prices go up, the worth of your investments would go up. So you do well. On the contrary, if the company is not doing well, and if it is going down at certain point of time, so you stand at the risk of getting a portion of your capital come down, or maybe your capital being wiped off with the fortunes of the company. As an investor, you have to be fully aware of the risks of equity investments. But generally what happens is that equity investments in the long run, if you are buying quality businesses, okay, so that's the role of the advisor or the role of the stockbroker who's advising to help the investor choose quality in businesses to invest in. We all know how a small cap company like Infosys has grown up into what it is today, right? Or how Wipro has grown up. But then again, how many Infosys are there, right? Or maybe how many HCL Techs are there? Or maybe ITCs of the world or HDFC banks of the world, right? So it is the job of the advisor to help the investor choose the proper stocks or the proper equity wherein he can put money. But definitely equity investments will help his portfolio with an additional return in the long run, right? So I would suggest that depending upon the risk profile of the investor, he must have some portion of the equity, some portion of his portfolio into equity investments. If he is not comfortable with direct equity investments, the role of mutual funds is very important in this part. So mutual fund is basically a shared investment. You put in 100 rupees, I put in 100 rupees, 10 other people put in 100 rupees. So we get a corpus, and there's a particular gentleman who's called the fund manager who would manage the investment on our behalf and trying to generate return. So that reduces a lot of headache on the part of the individual investor, wherein he has to track the stock, track the balance sheets, track how the company is expected to do in future. It's always better that if you are a layman investor and you don't have that time and proper resources at hand to track which stocks to pick up, you go for a mutual fund, which will get you a ready set of portfolio, which you can choose as per your risk profile. Your advisor can help you choose that, and you invest in equities indirectly through the mutual fund, wherein your risks are very much alleviated, and you generate a return over a period of time which typically is in the double-digit range.
Well, that's quite interesting. Once you said equity is buying a share of the company, so along with the buying the share, the the future of the investment also gets tagged with the future of the company. So if the company grows well, the investment grows well,
Right.
and vice versa. So another a good pointer which you gave is that we should, instead of buying direct equity, we should have a shared equity in form of mutual funds where where there is a pool of fund which is picked up from different investors, and there is one person called fund manager who manages the portfolio. So equity in long run, you said it will give a double digit, but at times because of the market volatile situation or whatever, it can dip down. So that require a nerve to bear this, dip down at certain point of time, I think. As you said, most of the investments require a long-term, time frame to start, yielding good returns. So this takes me to the question that when and how a person should start investing. Does a person should start investing as soon as he starts earning, or after a certain period of time, and how should he earn it? Is it advised for a person to directly buy some equity or buy some random mutual funds, or how? When and how? Over to you.
Right, Abhishek. It's a very interesting question. When should someone start investing? It is said in our finance terms, the best time to invest is when you have money. Okay, so you may not be earning, but someone may get 10,000 rupees gift from his dad on his birthday, right? So that's a corpus also, right? So he can go ahead and invest. So now the best time to invest is as and when you have money, and the better way of handling your investment is to give investments time. Okay, investments generally grow over a period of time. This is not a get rich quick scheme. Okay, investments are not gambling. It's a planned process wherein the corpus is expected to grow at a certain rate over a period of time with short-term volatility. Now, where to invest? Again, I'm trying to stress over and over again, the role of advisors like us is very important, because the person needs to sit with his advisor, needs to get a clear idea of the different investments options which may be available to him with the corpus he has, right? Like someone who is just starting off as a salaried person, right? He may not have a corpus. He needs to grow a corpus over a period of time. So he needs to save regularly from whatever monthly salary he may be getting. Okay. Or someone may be suddenly getting an inheritance, right? He may be quite young. He may have just started working, may not have his own capital, but may have got some inheritance, right? And he needs to invest that. So the sooner the better. And the form of investment should be typically decided in a conversation with his advisor, who would be the right person to provide a direction in which way he should invest to maximize his returns.
Wow, that's amazing. Now, there is one concept called compounding. Now, this compounding, it is said that compounding can really give one fortune. It takes me to a story wherein a king was very pleased with a performer, and the king said, ask whatever you want. Performer has presented a chessboard in front of the king and said, in the first, chessboard has got 64 squares. In the first square, you place 1 rupee, and in the second, it should always double. For example, if square number 1 has got 1 rupee, square number 2 should have 2 rupees, square number 3 should have 4 rupees, it next should have 8 rupees, 16 rupees, 32 rupees, 64 rupees, and so on. And by the time king reached the 64th square, he has to sell his kingdom. So that is described as a power of compounding. However, in investment, power of compounding is very much what is recommended. So first thing I want to understand, what is this power of compounding and how can it help an investor to grow his or her investment? Over to you.
A very interesting story, Abhishek. I wish the investments would just be like that. The first year and from the first year to the second year, I double up my investments and then again double up in the third year. It doesn't happen that way. Basically, compounding is adding up interest to your principal and then putting an interest to that. plain and simple, I'll explain it in very arithmetical terms. Say if an investment is giving you 6% annualized return, so your 100 rupees becomes 100 plus 6 rupees, 106 rupees at the end of year 1. And at the beginning of the year 2, your principal is no longer 100 rupees, because the first year interest has got added to that. So your principal becomes 106 rupees and you generate 6% on 106 rupees, right? So at the end of the second year, it again starts with the interest portion added. So compounding is basically adding interest to interest. That is why. So someone had rightly said compound interest is the eighth wonder of the world, like the story wherein you mentioned the king. He would have perhaps not imagined that putting the double quantity in each square would probably make him sell his kingdom, or otherwise he would not have gone into that trap, right? So the point again brings to your earlier question, is that the more you give your investments time, okay, so remember this, what formula I just explained. One principal component of that formula is T, which is time. Okay, so for first year it is 1, for year 2 it is 2. The more you spend number of years, your interest component gets added up to your principal and again generates interest on that entire amount. So it would grow manifold if you compare it to some investment which is earning a simple interest, right? Wherein a simple interest, it is only the interest part which adds up to the principal every year. Say, like I'll give you an example, like the same 100 rupees, if you are generating 6% as a simple interest, becomes 106 rupees at the end of year 1. But in the year 2, you are again getting 6% on 100 rupees, not on 106 rupees. So again, in year 2, you are getting only 6 rupees. Okay, so the compounding interest will increase your principal manifold at the end of a particular time period if you compare it with some investment avenue which is generating a simple interest. So it is always better that if someone starts early and he, rather than trying to time the market, he gives his investments time, and wherein the investments would generate that compounding effect over a period of time, which is defined by the power of compounding, and maybe he would see his 10,000 rupees going into a lakh of rupees, which he would perhaps not have imagined over a period of time because of that compounding. Okay, so a typical example of compounding is people who do systematic investment plans, invest monthly, maybe in a recurring deposit in a bank or a SIP with a mutual fund. So he or she may not see much of a difference in his investments in the first year, second year, or the third year. But going ahead, if he spends more time with the investment, he will see the investments growing manifold. Like the king, for the first square, it was only 1 piece of grain. For the second square, it was 2. For the third square, it was 4. By the third square, he was not realizing what I am getting into. So by the 4th or 5th or 6th or 7th or 8th, he would have started to realize that I am just running out of money, right? So same thing with the investors. Investment is a very disciplined process. Like I said before, it is not a get rich quick scheme. It is not a deal lottery where you spend in 500 rupees and try to get 500 crores. It doesn't happen that way, right? It's a disciplined way of growing up your money. And what I would say, that the more time you spend with your investments, you would see the power of compounding helping your investments to grow it manifold.
Oh, that's very, very interesting concept, the power of compounding. And for any investor, that would have been really a blessing. And
Right.
secondly, what we just learned from you is that we should give investments time rather than timing the market. The more time we give to the investment, better the returns. I think that's
Right.
Two very good concepts we got from you. Well, that was a wonderful session with Mr. Kausik Mitra. And if you would like to connect with Mr. Kausik Mitra, I'll give the link using which you can connect with him. Well, that's all for today. We'll be back with many such episodes. Thank you so much, Mr. Mitra, once again for being a part of this
Thank
show.
you, Abhishek. Thanks for having me. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye.
Stay tuned, stay connected. Have a great day.